Hey everyone, welcome to Secrets Behind the Stars. Settle in, because what the industry has been whispering about for days has finally taken on a life of its own. The question that hovered over every red carpet, every interview, every behind-the-scenes clip has just been answered by two names whose chemistry has been impossible to ignore. Halil Ibrahim Sayhan and Sıla Turkishdrama broke their silence at last, and the way they chose to do it. Softly, calmly, and with a line that began with those unmistakable words, 2 years ago, left their fans stunned and strangely moved. You remember how this all began. It goes back to that special project where their paths first crossed, the one that placed them side by side in long days under hot lights and longer nights running lines, sharing jokes, stealing glances that were supposed to belong only to the characters. The cameras captured electric moments, but what viewers could not see was the gentle thread weaving between takes, quiet conversations by the monitor, a smile offered when the day ran long, small gestures that did not shout but spoke. From the red carpet poses to the playful banter in interviews, it became the kind of mystery that gossip blogs live for. Was there something deeper there, or were we just seeing the magic of two good actors making sparks on cue? For months, for years, they said nothing. When asked, they deflected with grace. When pressed, they smiled and changed the subject. The rumor mill spun itself dizzy while Halil and Sıla simply kept working. And then came the magazine interview that cracked the facade wide open. With the calm of someone who had made his peace with the spotlight, Halil leaned into a truth he had kept carefully folded away and said that it was about 2 years back, long before anyone noticed, that they truly began to learn each other's rhythms. He said it without drama, no fireworks, no hard sell, just a quiet confession that made the gossip world sit up and catch its breath. It wasn't a lightning strike, he hinted. It was a steady dawn. Sıla picked up the thread with a tenderness that felt like opening a window in a room we all thought we knew. She spoke of what it is to live in an industry where your smile is archived, your sigh is dissected, where a glance becomes the headline and a silence becomes a scandal. They chose, for 2 full years, to keep their feelings tucked close to the chest. In that protected space, she said, friendship came first, then sharing, and then trust. Step by step, they built something quieter than a movie scene and far more resilient. Her words didn't sound like a press statement, they sounded like a memory being handled with care. And just like that, social media erupted. Comments cascaded down timelines like confetti. You could feel the collective exhale as fans wrote things like, "We always saw it in your eyes," and, "It's been ages since we've watched two people fit so naturally." Others marveled that something this tender could live hidden for 2 years in a world where nothing stays secret for more than a heartbeat. It didn't take grand gestures or glossy declarations. All it took was 2 people standing still in their truth and letting us see the outline of a love we had only guessed at from the edges of frames. Don't expect champagne-soaked parties or overproduced posts. That's not their style, not now, not ever. Both of them made it clear they want to keep the focus where it has always been, on the work that brought them together. It was almost ironic, by finally confirming the whispers, they promised to step even more carefully, knowing that every shared glance would now be magnified, every coincidence examined like a clue. They acknowledged that the spotlight can be both a stage and a magnifying glass, and they chose the stage. Yet, let's be honest, that magnifying glass isn't going anywhere. Once the confession landed, the behind-the-scenes stories bloomed from the edges like ink in water. Friends spoke, quietly, about how the two of them would sometimes slip off for a coffee away from set, not in the tucked-away corners where secrets go to hide, but in places that, somehow, never felt like scenes. Even with overlapping circles and schedules packed tight, they protected their time like it was the last soft patch of grass in a crowded city. It wasn't grand escapes so much as simple retreats, day trips without announcements, a night drive to watch the city exhale its lights, short pockets of calm that let them exhale too. The aim, it seems, was never to hide from the world but to give their story a chance to breathe before it had to perform. People who know them described the balance with a kind of awe. Halil's grounded calm, the way he approaches his craft with discipline and quiet intensity, found an echo in Sıla's bright, emotionally tuned energy. It is a mix you could feel on camera, the pull and pulse of 2 complementary forces, but those closest say it is in private that their harmony becomes unmistakable. There were long days when a look from him steadied her, and nights when her laugh softened the hard edge of exhaustion on his face. They fit, not like a puzzle solved in a moment, but like a melody practiced until it feels inevitable. The story wasn't a flash, they insisted, it was a slow build. No sudden declarations, no cinematic fireworks. At the beginning it was conversation, gentle and unhurried. Then laughter. Then the easy ritual of sharing the simple things, how the day went, what scenes still lingered, the small triumphs, the tiny fractures. If there was a turning point, it wasn't a dramatic kiss under the rain but a quiet realization that the person you look for after a long day has become the home your heart recognizes. That is how they told it, and that is how those who watched from a distance tell it now, piecing together the mosaic from the moments we all saw without truly seeing. And because the past loves to wave from the back of the room, old clips suddenly returned with new color. Outtakes from 2 years back, those crackling laughs between takes, the soft shoulder bumps and tangle of smiles, were rewound and rewatched like evidence the public had missed. Lines in interviews, simple, benign lines about feeling peaceful, about everything flowing, are now being read as quiet winks to a secret that hadn't yet been named. Even the way Halil carried himself during that period, more contained, steady as bedrock, but with a private spark when a certain call came in. Feels different now that we know what we know. It wasn't just him. Friends say that around the same time, Sıla seemed to glow in a way that wasn't about makeup or lighting. Her energy felt more centered, her joy more grounded, though she refused to let anyone pin that glow to her personal life. Ask her about it back then and she would have smiled and steered the conversation back to the show, back to the craft, back to the next scene. The choice to keep the secret wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision, it was strategy, protection, maybe even survival. They knew the machine they worked in, how it loves spectacle, how it can burn feelings down to headlines and posts. So they played it smart. They chose different entrances, sat a row apart when the flashes went wild, left events minutes apart so cameras would miss the clue. They picked restaurants with back doors and met in places that cared more about privacy than buzz. It was careful, yes, but never cold. Now that the truth has a name, what does the future look like? If you were hoping for a grand pronouncement, you won't find it here. Their stance is plain but powerful, no overreaching promises, no theatrics. They are living this with the same steady hands that shaped it. Work first, hearts protected, story unfolding not for show but for real. The confession doesn't end the questions, it deepens them. Where will they appear next together? Will the scripts that find them now tilt toward the chemistry we've watched bloom in real time? Will the next gala shot tell us a new chapter? All we know is that they are keeping their own pace, just as they kept their own secret. In the days since, new whispers have circled like birds above the city. People talk about moments we all missed. The afternoon they left set separately but somehow ended up at the same quiet cafe, the time a weekend getaway landed them near the sea far from the strobe of nightlife. Nothing scandalous, nothing sharp-edged, just two people testing the strength of a bridge before walking across it. Insiders swear that the most romantic scenes had nothing to do with camera angles and everything to do with how their hands found each other when the director called cut. When the world got louder, they got quieter. When the questions sharpened, their answers softened. That was the rhythm, and it worked. So here we are, at the place where rumor turns into story, and story turns into something like a promise. Not the kind of promise shouted from a rooftop, but the promise you make to yourself when you stumble into something rare, to protect it, to nurture it, to let it grow on its own terms. Maybe that is why the public's reaction feels so warm. Because in an industry built on show, they chose soul. In a timeline designed for drama, they chose time. And when they finally spoke, the world listened, not because the secret was explosive, but because the truth was gentle. The future may bring brighter premieres, bolder scripts, and yes, even more eyes on every moment they share. But if the last 2 years have taught us anything, it's that Halil Ibrahim Sayhan and Sıla Turkishdrama know how to carry their story without losing themselves in the noise. You've been watching Secrets Behind the Stars, and if your heart is still fluttering a little, you're you're not alone. The cameras will keep rolling, the headlines will keep biting, and we'll be here, watching the spaces between the frames, waiting for the next quiet revelation to rise above the buzz. Until then, keep your notifications on, share the love, and remember, sometimes the most dazzling thing in show business isn't the flash. It's the slow, steady glow you only notice once the lights dim and the real story begins.